Welcome to Equipping Leaders, a podcast where I share and discuss resources, tools, and information to equip leaders to build creative, cohesive teams through culture and leader development. Welcome to the Equipping Leaders podcast. I am your host, Natasha, and today I'm going to share with you a conversation that I had with entrepreneur Brandon Pruner on grateful leadership.
Good morning.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well.
Good. It's so good to see you. So we've known each other for a really long time, and then we keep in touch via the socials. And I love all of the content that you put out, especially about being grateful and all your entrepreneurial pursuits and all that great stuff. Tell us about yourself and all the amazing things that you do.
Husband, father of a 13-year-old daughter, good kid. We're blessed. We've got one of the good ones, thank goodness. Entrepreneur, multiple businesses, prior Army. I've kind of always been into being an entrepreneur. I did it before I joined the service in 2010. I ran my own construction company for quite a while. And then the housing market crashed, 07, 08. It really started getting pretty tough around here. I had held on as long as I could till about 09, and then phone wasn't ringing anymore. Had bills to pay, had a kid to take care of, so Army was hiring. Joined the service in 2010. Stayed in for 6 years, but always continued to build on the side, which has always been a passion of mine, building, carpentry, stuff like that. I got out in 2015, my wife and I both, who I also met in service. Got out in 2015, immediately got my licenses again, moved back to Florida where I'm from. Started building again on the side, but I was also teaching at the cyber defense course down here in Pensacola. And then that got so much, I was gaining so much traction with that and just really getting the fever again to work for myself. So stepped away from teaching January of last year. Had a good friend of mine I grew up with. Started a wooden baseball bat company actually out of his garage, and it grew into something just him and his wife couldn't even believe. So he asked me to partner up with him, so my wife and I bought into the company. I do productions there almost full-time during the week. I still do the construction thing, not as much, but I still sell jobs for the company. And then I have two other good friends of mine that just last year started an Airbnb company as well.
Wow. That's
Yeah, so I don't do well with idle time. Thank goodness I married a woman who's okay with that.
I love that. I just love it when two entrepreneurs join together and then they build this really something bigger and even more amazing.
It's been a blessing. I mean, he's a fantastic. I call him my boss. He obviously owns more of the company than I do. His name's on the company, which I'm okay with. But what's great about Eric and Sarah is, we both have stock and ownership in the company, but we both work alongside each other most days. And he refuses, even though he owns much more of the company than I do. We're both salaried, obviously, but he refuses to take a higher salary than I do, which, speaks to itself. He said, "You're right here alongside me doing most of the work." And I'm like, "Eric, your name's on the company. It's okay. You can take more. It's not going to hurt my feelings." But he just refuses to. He doesn't like it when I call him boss. It's just a great atmosphere. It's a good dynamic between us.
I love that. And that also leads perfectly into what we're talking about today, which is this concept of grateful leadership. So it's when you get to work around amazing people like that, it kind of makes gratitude a little bit easier. On your page, you post a lot of really great quotes and insights about being grateful. So how did gratitude really become kind of like a cornerstone for you, and how has it really changed your life?
It's a loaded question. I can talk forever about that. So I'd say probably about 2.5 years ago, my wife come across a book. She's an avid reader, English major, loves reading. Me, not so much. I'm kind of a childlike in the brain. I go stir crazy. I can't sit still. But she came across this book. It's called You're a Badass, Jen Sincero. She thought it would be perfect for me because not that we had bad lives or anything. We were happy. We weren't miserable. But I've always found myself kind of just leapfrogging from one venture to the next, really trying to find something that I'm passionate about among the passions that I already entertain. And she thought the book would be perfect for me, so I actually sat and read it. It took me only a couple of weeks, which is super fast for me. We can't all read a book in one day. And I'm sure people who read feel like they come across certain material that just seems like it was written specifically for them. That's how I felt about that book. I've read it probably 4 times since then, and that was going probably over a decade without reading a book start to finish. And then from there, it talks about a lot of different things, manifesting things into your life, abundance, gratitude, obviously being one of the big ones, law of attraction. And from there, it kind of sent me on this journey of researching more about it, reading more books about it, following people that talk that way, live that way. And one thing I started to notice when I was, watching all these huge thought leaders, these entrepreneurs, these innovators of the world, they all talk the same. They talk about visualization, they talk about the law of attraction, they talk about the universe, they talk about higher power, they talk about gratitude. And gratitude, I kept coming across that concept. And I didn't really consider myself a miserable person by any means, but I thought there had to be something to it. So I put it into action. I started testing that theory. I started keeping a gratitude log, a journal every day. I started verbally putting it into practice. And I've got a rule that I've since adopted over the last 2.5 years where when I wake up in the morning when my alarm goes off, I have to start immediately giving gratitude towards things before my feet hit the floor. So obviously the first one is, I'm a God-fearing man, so I thank God that I woke up another day. That's a big one for me. But I mean, whatever people believe, it doesn't have to be God, universe, source, energy, whatever you want to call it, whatever you pray to. So I thank God that I woke up another day. And then from there, it just kind of, it builds on that. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm thankful that I get to go into this job that is something I'm passionate about, not something that I have to go do a 9 to 5 and just kind of count the hours and the minutes until it's over. And really gratitude, even though it's the biggest thing, I feel like it's just a catalyst for everything else. It has helped shape and change my mindset. Prime example is back when I used to do construction. It was very easy for me. Used to be a lot more short-tempered back then. My wife has definitely toned me down over the last 11 years. But if I let one thing go wrong in the morning, it's a lot of people go through this. Your whole day can spiral out of control based on that one thing. But what I've found is it's not really, what is that quote? It's life is 10% what happens and 90% how you react. Gosh, changing that mindset and that thought to why is this happening to me versus what is this trying to teach me, coupled with gratitude, it has really changed my life. And I'm telling you, I know it sounds unrealistic, but in the last 2.5 years, I haven't had one bad day. I've had some bad things happen, but they've happened in good days, and it's been more about how I react or how I respond to it. And, what is it trying to teach me? And, am I going to be reactive or am I going to be proactive? But every bit of it for me has stemmed from practicing gratitude daily.
I know that when I wake up in the morning, I also do like my gratitude journal, just because you want to really start it off. You want to start it off strong. Remember all the good things before you have an opportunity to stub your toe or for something to go wrong. Right? I bet you're already in the mindset. But it also, like what you're saying, reminds me of, it's an older quote, and I do not know who said it originally. But they said that, was it a bad day or was it a bad 5 minutes that you've now milked all day and you've turned it into a bad day? But you're absolutely right, where it's like when something happens, how am I looking at that? Am I perceiving it in a way that's beneficial for my growth, or am I really letting it kind of drag me down? And I think gratitude is such an important piece of, like you said, when you're in that mindset, it is so easy to just be like, oh yeah, okay, that's not ideal. But the next moment is a new moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it has definitely shaped the way I look at just about everything. And, in turn, not that I consider myself a, bad father before this journey, but I've noticed that those daily practices have really leaked into different facets of my life, like as far as how I am as a husband, how I handle situations like that. Because, it's no secret, if you're in a relationship for an extended period of time, you don't always get along. But as far as being a father as well, I've noticed that some of the advice, when my kid, who's 13 now, who's, going through those teenage years, and while we may think it's trivial or easy now, I remember going through that and it being some very pivotal and tough times. And I noticed the advice I give my daughter now versus a couple of years ago seems to be more centered around that, like trying to get her to understand, perspective and, is it really as bad as you think it is? Or, maybe you're just perceiving it that way. And, a go-to line for me, which she probably gets sick of, is when she is, really digging out about something that is probably trivial, is one of my go-to lines is, it could always be worse. It really could. I try to outline some of the rough, times that people out in the world are really going through, and how, she's loved. She's got a support team here. She's taken care of. She gets to eat when she wants. She gets things she wants. But it's really, really improved. God, every facet of my life, including business too. I don't get frustrated nearly as often. I don't lose my temper hardly ever. I do, but not as often as I used to be. I wouldn't consider myself a hothead now like I used to would have.
Yeah. And I think also, like, anger is totally natural. We all feel it, but it's again, like you said earlier, that like what am I going to do with this, right? Am I going to kind of, let it simmer, or, make it, just like push it to the side for just a minute so I can kind of think more clearly. And I love what you said too about, like, in your relationships and, as a parent, as a spouse, and even in business relationships, I think that when you have this gratitude mentality too, you really, those like sliding door moments that you have, you tend to choose, not that there's a good or bad choice in a sliding door moment, but you tend to choose the ones that actually like build, right? They build stronger foundations, and they build that trust and that caring for other people.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us about some times when you just felt this like overwhelming sense of gratitude, and maybe you weren't in a place where you could actually express it?
I'm a very open person. I don't have any issues talking about feelings or anything. God, I don't know. I mean, I've had a lot of overwhelming gratitude experiences, but I honestly don't know. Not one that comes to mind where I felt like I couldn't express. Well, okay. I guess I don't know if I've expressed it to my wife, but haven't really talked about it outside of that with other people in my life. One thing, to try to make a long story short here, this whole journey that I've been through with gratitude, and then, elevating my mindset, and you really when you start to practice daily habits like this, and you get better at them, positivity obviously being a big one as well, how we're seeing things. When I got to a certain point like that, where I felt like I was very consistent with it, I was journaling every day, I was reading, I was very mindful of the material I was consuming, the people who had access to me. When I got to a point like that, the people who aren't like that, and not to look down on anybody or to judge anybody, but the people that aren't like that, it really starts to get amplified. And even though the gratitude and the positivity has been some of the easiest things for me to adopt, making it a habit, but it's been some of the best, but really easiest things, because I notice it just keeps attracting more good into my life. I'm a big believer in, like attracts like. What you're putting out is exactly what's coming back. But with that, the hard part of that is, everybody thinks, oh yeah, I can do that. That's fine. But the hard part comes when you start to notice that there are certain people that you've allowed access to in your life. Some of them good friends, family. And you notice that, you're on a different journey than them. And you notice that, me personally, like, I'm in a prime example. I'm not, I haven't really talked about it openly a lot, but my parents would be a prime example. And, you could argue, different generation, or, they're from a different time. They grew up a different way. And and all that's all good. But one thing I noticed is you start to notice how energy suckers people can be. Not that, I think because I'm living this way, everybody should live this way, but you really start to notice the negativity that certain people carry around with them on a daily basis. And how, I'm here because of this person, or, this person did me this way, so this is why my life is what it is, versus taking responsibility for that you're where you're at in life because of the choices you made, and not something external, which, again, I know we're all guilty of, and I've been there too. But honestly, and severing ties with some of those relationships in my life after, initially trying to bring it to the attention of the loved one or friend, whatever it may be, in a positive way. And it, obviously not being well received in a lot of cases, because a lot of times people don't want to admit that they may be a part of the problem, or just some people have no intent on changing. And that's fine. That's not up to, I feel like that's not up to me. It's just up to me to try to bring it to the light. And if we can't find a common ground, then, maybe it's time that we part ways. But that being the hard part, honestly, after getting over the guilt, of realizing that, some of these relationships, they just weren't serving me. And I don't mean serving me in a way that could, bring me something good or anything like that. I just mean serving me in a way that I could keep moving forward in my journey with my growth, with my wife and my kid. But, the hard part is severing ties and getting over the guilt. But coming full circle with your original question was, I did feel, honestly, a lot of gratitude about that, which is why I struggled with the guilt, is why do I feel so grateful about moving forward with this without these relationships anymore? But really, it got to a point where, I realized I was stuck. I couldn't continue growth until I either, one, put in an attempt to make those relationships better, and some I have, or, just have to sever ties with some of those relationships because it's just not supporting my growth. So after getting over the guilt and dealing with that, with obviously the help of my wife, who's probably the smartest person I know, I've been extremely grateful for that, but really have only shared that with my wife. So I haven't been able to just kind of go out and tell the world, yes, I'm severing ties with people that I've loved and, had in my life my entire life, but that's what's good for me. That's been a tough part of this journey.
Yes, and I think that, as a society, which I always hate it when people say that because it's like this invisible army that is like society, but I think that we place all this importance on certain relationships, and it has to be this way, and no matter what. And sometimes those relationships are just toxic to our growth, and they're just not what's good for either party. You're just on two different frequencies, and boundaries just need to be set, because we can't be, when we're trying to elevate, and we're willing to bring people with us, of course, 100%. But then there's some people who are just they're, like you said, they're not there. They're just not in a place where they can realize what they need to grow, and because they can't, it's like the crabs in a bucket, right? If a crab tries to get out of a bucket, the other crab's drag it back down. So it's very much like that. It's be the crab that got out of the bucket and just run away.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
because you can love people from afar. I'm a big fan of that. I know there's a lot of people who I can't have in just around me consistently, because it's so draining. And then I'm just
it is.
It kind of gets you into a different place mentally that's not grateful.
Right. And it's so funny you put it that way. I've said it almost verbatim like that to a handful of people that, look, if we can't find a way to grow together, or, just make some positive changes, I'll have to love you from a distance, is exactly what I've said. So you hit that on the head.
Well, I'm also, I know my mom used to say this, and she didn't make it up, but let's pretend like she did. People in your life are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Right? So it's some people just aren't meant to be around forever. And relationships are what we say they are. It's not what somebody else says it should be. Right? When people are oh, if you get married, it better last forever, no matter what. You can work through anything. Well, calm down. It's for people, and everything is different. Every person is different. And so I always think that that's really interesting too. Just this pressure that we place on people to be expectations that are not their own.
Right. Yeah, the society, like you said, I'm a huge believer in that same thing, and it's not when it comes to just relationships. It's any type of that strain that society has placed on us about, well, this is what you do, this is what everybody does, and it's from anything from schooling to the job you should work, or the way when you should marry, what age you should buy your first house, that stuff. But relationships, prime example of that. I've had people, down the stretch with this, because, I've got a strained relationship with my parents now because of this. And something that my mother has said to me in regards to my father, because he's a great guy. He's done a lot in my life, but as time has moved on, we've had some distance, and growth hasn't always been there on both sides. Is, I guess, the most elegant way I can say that. But my mom's go-to, really, to me, it's a go-to excuse is, well, it's family, and, that's what families do. And I'm all for, on one hand, it's, yes, families do struggle, and they try their best to try to find a way to work through it. But when you don't have all parties involved that are willing to, find a way to make it work in the middle and see where each side is coming from, well, I just don't think there's any growth to be had in that. And that's just, to me, that's a BS excuse. That's part of that society thing. Well, it's family, so you have to deal. I'm sorry. That's not how I feel at all.
Self-sacrifice for someone else who does not care in the same way, right? So I've cut ties with some of my siblings, and for similar reasons, where it's just they need so much, and they are so abusive, and it is awful. Like the phone rings and that name pops up, and I'm just
it's deflating.
Yes. I'm like, I can't and I won't. Being grateful and, that kind of law of attraction mindset and stuff. In the future, if my sibling is in a place where we could become good friends again, I'm open to it. Like, I'm not like slamming a door. But what I am saying is that right now there just has to be distance, because neither one of us really understands what the other needs, and we don't know how to respect each other's boundaries. And instead of being like, it's all him, but then that's me not respecting his boundary of probably needing something more from me. Family's always the hardest one too, because like you said, people are like, that's what you do. It's family. It's
a part of the programming. I mean, it's, growing up, it's part of the programming. You think everything is the way it is. Oh, well, that's how he's always been, Oh, God, he's so angry. Well, he's just got a temper, that's how he always is. So we just kind of swallow it and take it as the norm, when really, as I've gotten older and I feel like I've started growing for the better over the last few years, I started realizing, well, that's not the norm. That's not, you don't have to deal with that. You try to bring it to the light, and if it's not well received, well, then you just got to move on.
Right, because like your feelings and how you want to behave ends where someone else's right to have feelings and behaves begins. Yeah, the next person, if I'm angry and I'm screaming at people all the time, nobody has to put up with that, even if that's just how I am.
Right.
Yeah, people can 100% be like, no, we're not putting up with that, which would then hopefully be a catalyst for me to look at that and say like, oh, why don't people want to be around me?
Right. But I guess not everybody arrives there the same.
That's always interesting too. I always love it when, also in working with particularly younger people, and you said you had taught at the schoolhouse for a little while, when you're working with younger people, it kind of like trying to show them different ways of being grateful. Yes. Without becoming like the parent, right? Who's just like, you should really be more grateful. What did that look like for you? Were you able to actually find kind of some unique ways to show people how to express gratitude, or express gratitude to them and kind of leading the way in that way?
So when I went to the schoolhouse, let's say I was probably, I'm 37 now. I was about 32, I think, 31, 32 when I took that job. And so I was a late joiner in the Army. I didn't join until I was 26. And I didn't consider myself, in the job field that we were in, never considered myself a very intelligent individual. That whole world for me was new altogether. I wasn't very savvy with computers when we joined the service, and I still don't really consider myself savvy now. But so I felt like I honestly had a leg up in the fact that I always felt I was nowhere near the smartest one in the room in my service career. So with that, I felt like I always put in more effort than everybody in the room. And that was really a trickle effect. That was to my advantage when I became an instructor, for the reason that, you get these students that are really down on themselves. I'm not going to make it. I don't have what it takes. All my peers are smarter than me. They get this stuff naturally. Those are those students that I really enjoy teaching, because, I would tell them, look, yes, on this end of things, it looks like I have all the answers because I'm the one up here giving the material, and you think I'm some kind of genius in this stuff. But let me tell you, it wasn't. It was less than 10 years ago that I was right where you were, questioning my life decisions, because I knew I was not the smartest one in the room. But here I am. It's not so much about what you know. It's, you be grateful that you're in this environment, first of all, and you're getting this material from people who have done it in the field, who have served with some of the people that are some of the smartest people in the room, and just know that it's just as important, maybe more important, about the effort you're putting in versus how much you actually know, because I knew very little as well. So a lot of times that's kind of how I conveyed it, is, you guys are getting some of the most raw knowledge and power from people who have done this stuff, some of them for 20, 30 years. I think I had a leg up in that sense than some of the older seasonal instructors. Not that they weren't good instructors, but it had been a long time since they had been a student, I guess. And it wasn't that long ago for me, so I could be very empathetic to what they were dealing with, because, you know as well as I do, in those types of DoD schoolhouses, they're just, it's the information fire hose. Like, they're giving it to you faster than your brain can actually process it. You hold on to as much as you can. So trying to get them to be appreciative and grateful of the fact that of the environment they're in, that not everybody's going to get this opportunity. You guys are getting frontline information. It's better than some of the instructors you're going to get it from at a university, because the ones at a university just studied it, got a degree on it. Some of the people you're getting this knowledge from are people that have done this stuff for years in the field. They have real-time experience doing it. So that was kind of how I conveyed it to them. In a real life scenario, I think a prime example, the first one that comes to mind is the wooden baseball bat company that me and my buddy own. Me and him grew up, we met on a baseball field, played all the way up through high school, together and against each other and into college. And it's easy, when you're grinding out and making, God, thousands of baseball bats a year. It's easy, like anybody. You lose sight of the passion occasionally if you're having a couple of stacked rough days, or maybe the load is heavy. We're experiencing a lot of volume, which really is a good thing. It's what you got in business for. We're making sales, but we're letting ourselves get overwhelmed with the fact that we're working 12-15-hour days, and we work almost shoulder to shoulder. He's 10 feet from me. He's doing a lot of the sanding. I'm doing the painting and staining and sealing, and that gratitude feeling will hit me, and I can feel the frustration coming off him because we're tired, we're sore, we're overworked. But then I think, we asked for this, this is what we wanted, and I tell him, look, I get it, we're going through a rough time, but my go-to line is, our 12-year-old selves would kick our ass right now if they knew that we were doing what we're doing for a living now, getting paid to do it, and we're upset about it. I said, look at what we're doing. I said, we make baseball bats for a living. That's what we do. And we're doing it at the highest level now. We're certified to sell to the highest level of play right now. And, there's only 36 other companies in the world that can do that. In the scheme of things, when you look at it like that, it's like, I get to do this today. I don't have to do this today.
And I love that reframe too of like, what would our 12-year-old self say about this, right? Because there's these dreams that we have as kids, and then as an adult, life is very different than how we thought it was going to be when we were kids. But to realize that you're really living a dream that you've had for a long time. And in the schoolhouse too, I think there's a lot of pressure that like you have to pass, which also is kind of like a weird thing to say, where you're like, you have to pass, like you're just trying to get to the base, right? You're not even trying to like excel or really learn anything. You're just trying to pass this course. Yeah. And there's like so much pressure. And then also they're kind of at the beginning of their career, so they're just learning to also manage all the expectations that that military service has for them. And I think also if we could frame it in a way, the schoolhouse would never do this, but I think it's like if you could, maybe you don't pass, right? And maybe that's okay. You not passing doesn't mean that your life or your career is over. It just means that this wasn't the right path for you. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yes, because I'm a huge believer in that too. And that's not an easy place to get to. But, we have a goal in mind, or we have some type of aspiration that we just know and we cling on to so hard. This is my path in life. This is what I'm supposed to do. And a lot of times, sure it is. It's a tough line between, is this telling me that I'm supposed to take a different path because I keep getting beat down, or is this a sign that I need to try harder? So, and I know that's tough, especially when you're younger. I had no idea what I was doing in my 20s. Like, for most of my life in my 20s, I had no idea what I'm doing. And I'm still figuring out a lot of that now. I would actually tell students, which I'm sure, the higher-ups, the powers that be, probably wouldn't appreciate this if it ever got out. But, I would tell students, when they were on their way out the door because they didn't make it, look, I get it. Right now at this point in your life, you wanted to graduate from here more than anything, but maybe this is happening because, the silver lining is something much better over the next 6 months to a year, or, however long it might take to come to fruition, is going to open up for you. Something you didn't even realize that wasn't even on your radar that might be better or bigger than this. So you just don't know. That's really how I've tried to live my life. I've always done it kind of like a stepping stone. Yes, there's always been things I'm passionate about that I want to get into, and I do dabble in those things, but it's also, I've lived a lot of my adult life. I'm not suggesting it's for anybody, but this has just been me. My life has been the same way. We've kind of just been going hard on something until something else shows up. It's like, I don't know if I'll do this forever, but I'm enjoying it now. I'm going to do it now. And then try to stay positive, try to stay open to the possibility of things. And then honestly, like living that way, opportunity just keeps showing up and landing in our lap. So we're like, okay, we weigh the pros and cons. We're like, yeah, okay, that sounds good. Outside of the Army, just really, that was more of a desperation for me. I mean, everything's just keep coming along, and it's just, okay, yeah, that sounds great. That's a great opportunity. I'll do that for now. But you got to be receptive to those. You can't put so much pressure on yourself.
I completely agree with that too, because it's kind of like when you go to college, if you go right at kind of classic college age, like 18 to 22, you pick something that you hope you're going to still love doing in 30 or 40 years. And the likelihood of that is it's just not going to happen. So I think that, yeah, like being open to like what's next and how does this evolve really helps people find their strengths. People want to be good at different cyber technology things because right now, with how the world is, it's a secure place to be. But what if it's not your strength? Or like me, you know, I was in cyber for 10 years. I don't like it. I mean, it's not fun for me. I never really enjoyed it. But being open and like being grateful for that opportunity, like this was amazing and it set me up and I have all this other experience and perspective to move into the next thing.
Yeah, but you nailed it. It set you up. You acquired a lot of skills. You met a lot of good people, probably networked a lot, met a lot of people that, you know, you never know. In 10 years or maybe tomorrow, you might come across a different venture that might involve some of those contacts and relationships that you built from that experience, even though you can agree it's not your overall purpose in life right now. But that's a problem I see with a lot of people. You know, they think if this doesn't work out for me, I've got nothing. I see that a lot of times with just from experience from, you know, my athletic career growing up. I knew my entire life I was going to play baseball at the highest level. That's just what I was going to do. Everybody knew that about me. That was just what I was going to do. But when I got to college, you know, about my third year in, I accepted that I'm good, but I might not be that good. And it hurt. You know, it really hurt because I put everything into that my entire life, and essentially that was my identity. And so when I didn't have it anymore, it's like, okay, well, you know, who am I? You know, what am I? And then, so I took a fall semester off from college just to come home, kind of catch my breath a little bit. The neighbor of my stepbrother did construction, did carpentry for a living. And Hurricane Ivan had just hit 2004. And he needed help. And I said, well, you know, I'm home for the semester. Sure, you know, I'll go do that. And then, you know, here I am almost 20 years later, and carpentry is now a passion of mine because I picked it up from a guy who's also one of my best friends now. You know, it's just, you got to be open to these things. No, I never planned on that. You know, if he told me 20 years ago, yeah, you know, carpentry is going to be a huge passion of yours, you're not going to be able to put it down. But again, I was receptive to it. And now it is something that I try not to let things like that define me anymore because, you know, when you do that and then you don't have it for whatever reason, you know, you almost, who are you? But I'm just open for things coming in, I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
It's so important, right? It's just like, it's such a fundamental thing that I think more people should learn to get comfortable with. Yeah. In transitioning out of the military, being with these different groups of people who are transitioning at all different levels of their career, specifically the people who've served for 20 or more years, some 30 or more years, they are struggling. And the reason why they're struggling is because, one, their identity was who they were in the military. They joined at a fundamental development time in their life, right, in their late teens. Yeah. But then two, they're like, I did logistics. I need a logistics job. And it's like, if whatever sparks joy, I'm all about it. But also those skills. What else did you learn? If you've been in for 20 years, there's some leadership there. There's some program management there. There are these other things. And so it was just really interesting to watch people who've been in for like 25 years. They're like, oh, well, you got to start somewhere. I'll just start at this entry level. And then there's me. It's just like, no, look at your skills. And what would somebody else call that? If you have 25 years of experience, leverage that. When
you don't make a crazy big jump like that, and a good example is me and you. You know, we didn't do 20 years, you know, which God, I had so many people, family, friends, you know, what are you doing? You know, it's a stable job, you know, what are you doing? And what I want to tell the people that, you know, did do 20 plus years, you know, and they're like, well, this is all I know, so this is the job I need. Well, okay, so that's what you know. But what do you actually want? Does that bring you fulfillment? Like, are you going to waste another 20 years on something just because you know it and just because, okay, yes, this is comfortable for me and I know I can pay the bills this way? Or, okay, you devoted 20 years to something that was greater than yourself, which is fantastic. I mean, obviously I don't knock that or I wouldn't serve in the first place. But what do you want? What do you actually want to do? Because those are the people you can tell when they're working in it and they're in the thick and they love doing it. God, it's such a different feel than when you see somebody they're just punching the clock because, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Or they get desperate and scared that they won't be able to find the right job, so they'll get any job. And then they do that thing where they're like, oh, I can do anything. And what I really like about in a lot of the programs that they have for the military, so they got like hiring our heroes and skills bridge and all of that. But in those, a lot of the advisors and the coaches are like, no, what do you want to do? Like, what do you like doing? And so one guy in our class, he's like, I want to own a food truck. That's just what I want. And so
that's great.
Yeah, so they actually put him through this like boots to business class and helped him with a business plan and getting his license, and the resources are available, and like just do what you want. You don't have to be a millionaire. Who cares?
Well, I've found too, and this is from experience. I'm experiencing it right now because sure, running multiple businesses, I've been guilty many times of chasing money. I'm not gonna lie, I've done it. I've been guilty of it many times. I fall back into it all the time. I keep hearing this. I keep reading it. I keep talking to people that are living that way, and it's the same answer every time. If you chase money, you're not going to have fulfillment. If you're doing something you're passionate about, especially when it is in regards to serving others, well, the money is a byproduct of that. Like, it's going to show up regardless because, you're doing what you love. Like, it just happens that way more times than not. And that's great. That's the byproduct of doing something that I love and, taking a chance, leaving the base, which was a 6-figure job, to take a pay cut, but to do something I knew was going to be less stressful, more fun, in an environment that I genuinely find myself getting ready around the house each morning, getting giddy to go there. I wasn't getting that at the base anymore, which is why I left. Yeah. Yes, it was stable. Yes, we had benefits. Yes, the money was good, but the fulfillment just wasn't there anymore. And when I get to that point, it doesn't matter as long as I don't, put my family in any type of jeopardy or chaos. If the fulfillment's not there anymore, I'm bored. I'm just not going to stay there anymore. That's how I've lived most of my adult life, and I'm going on 40 now. It's worked out so far, so I'm gonna do my best to keep living that way and not compromise. I'm gonna write a book one day about not compromising into society norms.
So this has been amazing. So where can people, if they want to learn more about you and they want to learn more about your different projects and businesses and gratitude, where can they find you?
So my personal handle on Instagram, Pruner09. I do a lot of daily motivational posting to there. I used to share it a lot to Grateful Living, but I'm going to say I've been guilty lately. I haven't been posting a lot to the Grateful Living blog or the Instagram because I've been working 80 hours a week. Not an excuse. I started that for a reason, to try to reach people. So I need to get back into that. This podcast actually has inspired me to make sure I start doing more of that. So agratefulLiving.com or the handle on Instagram of Grateful Living. I just try to put out just positive, uplifting stuff, and just if it touches one person in a day, then that's great.
Thank you for listening to the Equipping Leaders podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at novel_Natasha or on Twitter at Natasha Cheyenne. Please join me next time for more insight and resources to equip leaders.